I'm back! Shout out to my lovely friend Iron Brew, who hates when I hold the microphone like this. This is just for you, boy. Today I would like to introduce you all to a very special lady in my life at the moment, Takabuti, an ancient Egyptian mummy who somehow found her way to Belfast in Ireland. Ooh la la! I actually travelled to that far off distant land to meet her and have a pint with her and have a chat with her. She's lovely. And I was actually really touched by her story, which is why I thought I'd come in and share it with you lot today, if that's alright with you. Warning, there's going to be human remains ahead, pictures of human remains. She's a mummy, get over it. My bibliography will of course be listed down below, but it is actually majority from the actual museum displays. The BBC Northern Ireland documentary all about reconstructing her face, which is pretty cool, which I'll link down there. And this book, which I've not long finished reading, The Life and Times of Takabuti in Ancient Egypt. Great book, by the way, highly recommend that you read it. I'll link it down there if you want to buy your own copy. Because that's it, that's everything. That's everything about her, by the people who have actually studied her, so it's class. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave any questions that you might have in the comments as well, of course. Now let's go have a chat about my Belfast bestie. She's really lovely. I thought I'd move us over this side of the room today. No reason at all. I've got a huge pile of washing on that couch over there and I can't be arsed moving it. We actually know a surprising amount about Takabuti when she was actually alive. From the writings that are actually on her sarcophagus through to all the DNA stuff that has happened since then. She's an ancient Egyptian woman, of course. A young upper class woman dating to around her sort of late 20s, early 30s-ish in age from what we can tell. I think that's why I feel so connected to her as well, because we're in the same age bracket now, you know what I mean? We're ticking the same box on that little question here, oh my god. She lived in Thebes, which is now modern day Luxor, round about 660 BC, which is the end of the 25th dynasty. So she was most likely mummified and buried nearby Thebes, but we don't know. We don't have that precise contextual information, unfortunately, because the lovely Victorians ruined that for us, but we'll come on to that a wee bit later on. Getting ahead of myself already. Class. So we'll start with the information that was actually written onto her sarcophagus, which was translated by Reverend Dr. Edward Hinks. It tells us she was the lady of a grand house or a great house, so she would have been in charge of the household, overseeing the servants, bringing up the kids, seeing about educating the kids. Don't know why I said it like that. If she had any, but we don't actually know if she had any kids or not. It also doesn't mention if she actually had a husband or not on the sarcophagus, which is quite weird. Usually, unfortunately, in this sort of time period, funerary inscriptions for women are based off the woman. Her dad was this guy, her husband was that guy, her son was this guy. And it's all to do with the men she's related to in her life, unfortunately. And that goes not just for Takabuti, but across the ancient Egyptian world, across the ancient Greek world, across the ancient world. Like, a woman's existence was defined by the men she was connected to in her life. And that's really sad. But it does mention her dad and her mum. Her mum gets a wee shout out on this one. Her mum was a woman called Tasenerit. Sorry for my pronunciation. It's been a while since I've done my ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics course, alright? It's been at least 3 years? No, 4 years since I did that course, because that was undergrad. Oh, I'm going to be sick. And her dad was a man called Nespari. And he seems to have been a pretty important geezer, actually, at the time, I think you'll find. He was actually a priest of Amun at the temple in Thebes. Quite a high up priest, so they would have been a pretty well off family. And the scientific analysis which has taken place after she's been dug up and studied could tell us even more about her in life and death, and actually shows us that she was in pretty good nick when she died, to be honest. Because of her dad's job, she would have had a really good diet, a well-rounded diet, very balanced diet, because he would get prime pickings at the temple from the offerings brought by everyone who would have been worshipping at the temple. Thebes at the time was also an incredibly important socio-political religious centre. So it's not just any old wee temple that her dad worked at, it was one of the biggies. So she would have had great grub, and this is actually reflected in what we can tell from her skeletally. For one, she has an absolutely gorgeous set of gnashers on her. Girl has the teeth that I envy, the teeth of my dreams. She looks like she's freshly stepped off a plane for Turkey. They are so gorgeous. They're completely straight, completely like bright white teeth. For a mummy, she's got real good teeth, girl. All of her teeth are accounted for. I need to stop with the finger, the devil finger. Jeez, oh, I'm doing that a lot today, sorry. Devil finger! Oh! All her teeth are accounted for. they've all erupted around about the right time, so we can base our age on that as well, sort of late 20s, early 30s, based on what's going on in there. And she actually has one extra incisor on the bottom as well. Lucky diva, an extra wee tooth. Her hair is also incredibly well preserved. Upon her unwrapping in 1835, a sample of her hair was actually taken and put in a tiny wee box, which is still on display in the museum. It's like, you know how you get baby's first curl boxes when babies are born, but backwards. Baby's last curl. Haha. I have a baby's first curl in a box. Would you like to see it? Is this gross? What is YouTube for if not oversharing on the internet? Here's my baby's first curl box. Her hair was in lovely auburn curls when it was first unwrapped as well, which you can kind of see by the wee bit that's been preserved in that box. It still sort of has that colour. The hair that is still on her mummy, on her body, is a lot lighter than that now, probably due to light exposure and like fumigation when they had to get rid of the bugs in her body, because of course there was bugs. She was a corpse. She is a corpse. And all the other treatments that she's probably been through. So her hair looks a lot more blonde now. Again, looks similar to my hair when I fried it all off when I used to dye my hair all the time. Remember that? Oh, that's how we started this channel.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
It was also cut very, very short just before her time of death. And it was coated in like a resin or waxy, oily fat sort of hair gel at the time. What the ancient Egyptians would have used as a hair gel to hold the curls in place on her head, which is really cute. Mummies were supposed to represent the deceased as they were in life. So by styling her hair in these curls and that's probably how she would have worn it in her lifetime, which is also quite quirky and different of her, because a lot of women and men in the ancient Egyptian world would have actually worn wigs because of the heat and stuff. They completely had their heads shaved bald. A lot of mummies that we find are actually bald because they would have worn wigs as the fashion rather than their own hair. So Takabuti is a style icon of our time who actually kept her original hair. The fact that it was cut close to her death, like before she died, kind of gives me the Walking Dead vibes. You know, if you've played the Walking Dead games and Lee cuts Clementine's hair really short so it doesn't get grabbed by the walkers.
I'm going to look like a boy.
But think how much safer you'll be.
I'd rather be dead.
In case she was attacked, but I'm foreshadowing that for later when we talk about how she died. But keep that in mind when we talk about that, because I'll probably forget to bring it up when I eventually come around to talk about that. So maybe she wore wigs. Maybe she did not.
When will you wear wigs?
Even if she did, because wigs were still in fashion, she would have had her normal hair underneath, which she would have been sweating buckets. Let's be honest. As a fellow curly-haired individual, no matter how long or short she had it, she would have been absolutely sweating. And I respect that. Because such an in-depth analysis of her body and of her DNA and stuff have been able to take place and all that, a class reconstruction of her face was able to be made based on that information. I highly recommend that you watch the BBC Northern Ireland documentary about creating her face and bringing her back to life in that sort of way. It's free here on YouTube. It's so good. I was pure crying at the end. It was so good. And that goes into the details of exactly what they did to recreate her face. It's really cool. Because they made an actual physical model as well. It wasn't just a 3D on the computer sort of thing. They brought her to life properly. Long story short, they did a 3D scan of her skull. They added the muscle layers and stuff and the soft tissues on top of it, using not just the contours of what her skull would have suggested her face looks like by following those lines, but also they didn't have her ancestry, so they used like the basic ancient Egyptian guidelines for the soft tissue makeup of someone contemporary from her time would have had, and they applied that because they don't know exactly her lineage, whatever. And then on top of all that, they added the fashions and the cosmetics at the time that would have been used. So the reconstruction does actually have a wig on, like earlier, but also you can see the big eyeliner, classic ancient Egyptian eyeliner and the makeup and stuff that would have been similar to what she probably would have had on her face. Especially being a high-ranking woman of society, she would have had access to all the makeup and stuff. The full 3D head did used to be on display at the Ulster Museum in Belfast, but when I went I couldn't find it, so they must have tucked her away in a wee corner somewhere and I couldn't see. Isn't it crazy how we could be looking at Takabuti as she lived and breathed, based on the information, which we have so much information. Yeah, she might not look exactly like that. It's highly probable that they're pretty close with the amount of information they had to go off and build this reconstruction. Absolutely. Who is this diva? She's gorgeous. I love her. I love her. Takabuti was the first ever ancient Egyptian mummy to ever arrive on Irish soil. Obviously. She was first purchased in 1834 by a young guy called Thomas Gregg, a well-off blood from Holywood, County Down. It's Hollywood, right? Because obviously America has Hollywood. Here in Edinburgh we have Holyrood. Pretty sure that's Hollywood over there. Let me know if I'm wrong. He actually found her at a mummy market in Luxor, which used to be Thebes. Yup. I want to do a whole video on Egyptomania and the Victorian era because, oh my god, dude, that shit stinks. Unfortunately, mummy markets did exist and they were essentially set up so that rich white people could go and buy souvenirs on their grand tours. Skull emoji, skull emoji, skull emoji. Ancient Egyptian goods were so sought after that tombs and graves and all that were actually plundered to meet the high demand of the Victorians or whatever elite Europeans were coming along to buy stuff so that they could take stuff home and have big massive unwrapping parties and snort coke off them and chop them up into little bits and eat them and stuff. It's wild. It's really wild. Like, that's somebody's granny we're talking about. Sorry, I'm getting rattled. I'll rein it in. Takabuti was actually one of the lucky ones because when Tommy Gregg, bought her, he straight away donated her to the Belfast Natural History Society. That was really hard for me to say for some reason. So that she could be studied. Still in the hands of Victorian men, but at least it's for a more scientific reason rather than just having a Raj party and showing off your holiday goods. So she probably had better treatment than whatever happened to potentially her fam and friend. God knows what happened to them. So she arrived in 1834, but her unwrapping party, I don't even like calling it that, that was postponed until the 27th of January 1835 because they wanted to make sure they had a proper nice glass case to put her in. Which is quite nice, I suppose. 27th of January also happens to be the birthday of one of my best pals, Lucy. Shout out to you, darling. Hello. I feel like that's crazy and like a sign from above that I was supposed to meet Takabuti and make this video about her. Because she shares, well, it's not her birthday, but it's her unwrapping day. And my best friend shares her birthday. Is it some sort of spooky coincidence? Ooh, I don't know. I think it's nice. For me, it's nice. I'm a whimsical girl. I like things like that, okay? Takabuti has since been on display in what is now the Ulster Museum since 1839, once all the research was done. And I say research like that because it was Victorian research. It's not necessarily the best, alright? But we're about to get into all that. 130 people were present for her unwrapping. Mostly Belfast's elite men at the time. Some of their wives were there, but they don't really get a mention. It's said that she was wrapped in linen with blue beads on the lining and stuff, but all the beads fell off as soon as they opened it because she's an old girl, and her limbs were additionally wrapped to hold them into place across her body. So it's not just like a big, worm sort of wrapping that she's in. Her eyes had been replaced with cotton, and they slightly opened her mouth with dental equipment to show off those gorgeous teeth that I'm incredibly jealous of. Listen guys, I had braces for 5 years of my life. In high school as well, I could have been bullied for that, and they're still not gorgeous, straight white teeth like Takabuti's. What the hell? Sorry, I'll grow up and move on. But also there was a lot of bugs. There was a lot of bugs on her because, of course, she's the corpse. I think all the bugs were dead. I think there was one live beetle or something in the record. They probably festered long, long, long ago when she was actually a corpse worth eating, and then the mummification process set in and they all died. There you go. But here's the biggie. It's pseudoscience time! Wee-hee! Yeah. They did phrenology on her. Because of course they did. Phrenology is the bullshit study, by the way, where Victorians thought the size and shape of one's skull directly correlated to your mental capability and your personality and all that. Obviously, given the time period where phrenology was like big, this was entirely rooted in racism and just uses an excuse to be racist all the time because, of course, the white people had all the good traits and the good skull sizes and everyone else did not. I told you, it's bullshit. But I thought to have a laugh and to mention this horrific part of history and what used to be taken as historical fact, scientific fact, I'll tell you some of the personality traits she might have had according to her phrenological study, which is bullshit. Keep that in mind, right? She would have been smart, she would have been very funny, but she would have had poor taste. She would have been a cautious woman, given how she died. Clearly not cautious enough, but we'll get on to that in a minute. She would have been a very moral and virtuous woman, and she was fond of children, although we have no evidence that she had any herself. She would have been a very friendly woman and very closely attached to her friends. Who's not? Bloods hit randomise on the Sims trait selector for real. What are you talking about? How can looking at an empty skull tell you that? What a load of shite.
That's a bag of shit!
We can't possibly know how she behaved in life, right? There's no way for us to figure that out. Just to throw it out there, she could have been a horrible cow. I don't want to believe that, but she very well could have been. We will certainly never figure that out based on her physical remains that we have left. Absolutely no way. I just thought I'd mention it as a funny haha shot taken at phrenology and all that stupid shit, because I think we need to learn from the past so that this sort of thing doesn't fucking happen again. Even though it low-key kind of is these days. Maybe she did have some of those traits, sure. I like to believe that she was a funny, smart, independent, intelligent woman. Yeah, but we have no idea, for sure. That's the end of that rant. Here we go, the bit you've all been waiting for, the bit I've been alluding to this entire time. How the bloody hell did Takabuti die? It's actually quite hard to tell how an Egyptian mummy died due to the fact that they're mummies and the nature of the mummification process that they've underwent, because it can often hide ailments in the cause of death just by doing it, I suppose. You know, removing the organs and all that, you can't really tell what's up with them if they're not in the body. But Takabuti went through rigorous radiography and CT scans and all that, and they obviously had a look to see what could possibly have happened to her. Turns out, skeletally, there is no sign of disease evident on her body. Again, she was in pretty good nick when they unwrapped her. The cause of death for Takabuti was most likely a massive axe hole in her back. The hit damaged not only her vertebrae but also 5 of her ribs. There was also dislocated bones in her fingers. No clue how she did that though. Don't know if that would be the same hit. Probably not. But the damage is as if she was hit with a very sharp object from behind, which is incredibly tragic and crazy. The wound was of course very well sealed by her mummifiers, embalmers, you know what I mean, whatever they were called, because the whole point of being mummified, the ancient Egyptians very much believed that you needed your full intact body as much as possible for the journey into the afterlife and to have a comfy afterlife, which is again why we can't usually tell how a mummy's died, because they tried to hide it as much as possible. Huge force would have been needed to cause this amount of damage to her body, and it would have fucked up her internal organs pretty badly. We're talking like a collapsed lung at least. So she was probably a goner from the second that axe hit her, unfortunately. Forget Leslie Tiller. Takabuti was fucking murdered. Takabuti
Was fucking murdered!
The weapon would have needed at least a 7cm sharp edge blade. At least. And it was probably something like one of these bad boys that I will put on the screen right now. Takabuti actually lived through a very tumultuous time in Thebes. It was a time of political unrest and things like that, so it's most likely she actually died during one of the multiple Assyrian raids on the city. Of course, we'll never know for sure, but it's actually really sad to think that she probably died fleeing for her life, because it's in her back as well, so that she's been running from someone and they've still managed to get her. The study of ancient Egyptian mummies in general, and medical papyri as well, where they survive, has actually really helped us with further understanding modern medicine today. Isn't that cool? I've got a proper death cough that I've woke up with, by the way. Sorry if I sound a bit because I feel it. These have essentially allowed us to track certain... Sorry, shouldn't do that while I'm talking. Track certain medical diseases and symptoms, ailments, things like that, and see what was going on and how they were treated and how they were affecting people and all that. Of course, there's a very large ethical issue around the study of these remains and the display of these remains. The Victorians didn't give a fuck. But nowadays, we are a lot more careful and a lot more respectful with how that's carried out. We've already learnt so much about Takabuti since 1835, and hopefully as technology continues to progress, we'll get the chance to learn even more without disturbing her too much. It's a shame we don't have her original burial context, because that could give us so much information about her as a person, like what grave goods did she have, what was she taken to the afterlife with her, was she buried next to her family or friends, maybe she did have a husband or kids, you know what I mean? We could learn so much more about her. But they bloody ruined it, those bloody Victorians. What we have with Takabuti is 2 layers of time, really. We have her and her lifetime in the ancient Egyptian world and what we can learn about that, but also her rebirth, rediscovery, I don't know what to call it, with the Victorian context of her time and Victorian attitudes and the Victorian ways of life surrounding this Egyptomania, grand tours, buying mummies situation. Maybe one day we will actually find an empty tomb that says Takabuti on the wall and we're like, that's her stuff, that's class, we found it. Probably not. Probably not. The rest of her stuff was probably also taken and like sold to other randoms. But you never know. One can hope and dream. Takabuti is an icon of the Ulster Museum. I highly recommend you go and see her if you're in Belfast at any point. She's one of my archaeobesties. You know, I've talked about those before. Nicandre, Balachula's figure, Cramond Lioness, Frasiclea. Takabuti's number 5, baby. She's made the cut. She's in the group. It's free to go in if you want to go and visit her. And she has her own wee room. I'm sure she'd love the company, honestly. I've sort of, in this video, summarised the main points of that book I showed you at the beginning about all of her research. I'll link it down below if you want to go and buy your own copy. I don't make commission or anything like that off putting it down there. I just want to spread the knowledge and the word of Takabuti. Thank you very much. It's a really great book, and I am too inept to explain all of the like science-y bits behind it, like the carbon dating and all the genetic analysis and all that stuff. That is way beyond me. So if you're interested in all that, maybe you can make sense of that. She inspired me to make this video specifically, but I'm also very aware that she has inspired thousands of people to take up the study of archaeology and history, ancient history, Egyptology throughout the years, which is absolutely amazing. We need more of that. We need more people to be inspired to study these things, because we're clearly not learning anything, are we, guys? Come on. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've been working on it for bloody long enough, so you better. Took ages. Sorry, I have a life. And I cried during the creation of this video for multiple reasons. But I hope she's happy wherever she is, and I hope I've done her justice today. Maybe one day I'll go back and visit her and just double check and be like, was that alright, hen? Did I paint you in a good light? You weren't upset with me when I did that editing and put this weird stupid meme in, were you? See how she feels. But thank you so much for watching! I will link all my bibliography down below, as I always do. All my social medias are also linked down there. Got a Discord, got a Twitch where I stream once a week-ish. 2 Instagrams, personal one and an archaeology one, if you're interested in that. What else do I do? TikTok as well, yeah. I need to start plugging all those, because I don't do that. I forget about that all the time. And of course, subscribe. As of this very moment, I'm like 50 subscribers off 2,000, so that would be class. That would be a lovely little Christmas present for me. Pop it in your family group chat, see what they think. Fire any and all questions and comments my way, of course, I'm more than happy to chat. Other than that, I'll see you all next Tuesday. Tatty bye, troops. God bless, Godspeed. Don't forget to brush your teeth.